This is the Bigger Pockets Podcast, show 453.
You're listening to Bigger Pockets Radio, simplifying real estate for investors large and small. If you're here looking to learn about real estate investing without all the hype, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and be sure to join the millions of others who have benefited from BiggerPockets.com, your home for real estate investing online.
What's going on, everyone? It's Brandon Turner, host of the Bigger Pockets Podcast, here with my other host of the Bigger Pockets Podcast, David, other host Green. What's up, David, other host Green? How you doing?
I'm doing great. You guys have spoken and we have listened. We have another awesome episode today where we bring in live callers to answer their questions on mindset, growth, and really anything that is stopping people from having the life and the success that they want.
There you go. So we're doing a live call-in show, and we had some amazing questions today. Really good stuff that we dive into, like the mindset and the strategy behind what it takes to really succeed, especially to succeed as a real estate investor. But we talk about other just business things in general that I think that no matter what business you're in right now, it's going to benefit you. So listen all the way through. You guys are going to love this. And if you're wondering, wait, how come I didn't know they were going live? Why didn't I get in on this action? It's because you probably weren't following me on Instagram. So that's your quick tip, is follow Bigger Pockets on Instagram. Follow David Green 24 on Instagram and Beardy Brandon. We're going to be doing more and more live stuff, answering your questions. So that is today's quick tip. One more quick tip for you is if you have questions, like, did you know we have a forum that's open 24/7? That's totally free. Biggerpockets.com/forum. You can ask questions about anything, and there'll be like thousands of people reading your questions. Maybe not thousands, but there are thousands of people on the forums. In fact, there's like over 2 million forum posts right now. So go on there. Post your questions, get real-time feedback from people who are smart and in the business and that care about you and your success. It's really an amazing place. I think it's time for us to get on with today's call-in show. Like we said, these are actual real Bigger Pockets members who are going to jump in and ask questions, and I think you're going to like this. So without further ado, let's get to the first one. Logan, what's up, man?
How's it going, guys? Y'all doing all right?
We're doing all right. Where are you at? Where are you calling in from?
I'm from North Carolina, right outside of Charlotte.
Very cool. That's a good real estate market, actually.
Yes, sir. Kind of got me rattled here. I can't believe I'm talking to you guys right now.
We're excited to have you. Hey, look at that.
Doing my research here, okay? Yeah, no, so I'm looking at my first property, probably doing more like a 20% down to start out until I can get some more cash flow to maybe burst some more properties. But what I'm asking is, I noticed that duplexes in places like Birmingham, Alabama, Huntsville, all kinds of places, they're usually cheaper, but they're obviously a lot cheaper than it is in Charlotte. So I'm just kind of more of nervous to get started on something like that because A, it's farther away. B, I don't really know the area as well. How much risk am I really going to face by not knowing the area that much?
Logan here has two options. He can buy in Huntsville, Alabama, or where was it, North Carolina?
Yeah, so like Charlotte or the outskirts of North Carolina, which is a little bit more expensive.
And you know that area worse or better?
Oh, I know North Carolina a lot better. I know nothing about Alabama. I was just using that for an example. I just noticed that their properties are about 10 to 20% cheaper.
So the question is, should you buy in a cheaper area that you don't know as well to reduce risk, or should you buy in the area that you know better even though the properties are more expensive?
Save my money just a little bit longer and before I'm just getting, kind of antsy on getting started, but, maybe waiting that extra 6 months or so might benefit me.
Okay, let's dig a little bit deeper into this. It sounds like you're trying to figure out what's the right decision for you. Is that fair, Logan?
Yes, sir.
All right. And then you've got a pit in your stomach that feels like you don't want to make the wrong decision.
I don't want to invest in a bad area with like bad tenants that just destroy it. What is like in your BRRRR book, it's something like the hole in the window, glass window or something like that theory that like if I buy in a bad area, like they're just going to destroy it. And
the broken window theory.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
All right. So Logan here is trying to figure out, should I buy in a cheaper area that I don't know as well because there's less risk associated with the lower price point, or a more expensive area that I know better? Which one's actually less risky? So Logan, this is a question of risk. Is that fair?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
My assumption would be your gut is telling you North Carolina is better because you've already mentioned things like the broken window theory. You think that might be high crime in the Alabama area. You don't know it as well. You don't have the people in place. So it should be an obvious, yes, you should buy where you are. The only thing that's stopping you is the fact that the prices are higher, which tells me that you're associating higher prices with more risk. Is there anything I'm missing?
Yes, that sounds pretty spot on.
Okay, so your mindset issue right now is a higher price actually more risky? And I'm going to tell you, Logan, I can relate to you on this because I get in the same boat as you. I'm looking at a $15 million property right now. I've never bought one property that's that much money. And it is terrifying to think about the fact that I'm buying this place that's going to be $70,000 a month. Okay. My mind just keeps going back to, if all my tenants stop paying, it's going to be 70 grand, 70 grand, 70 grand. It's just pounding me, right? Which is the same thing that I felt when I bought my first house, believe it or not. I was like, all right, if I don't have any tenants at all for a full year, it's going to cost this much money. Am I going to be able to cover that? And I think this is a normal thing that our brain thinks about. Do you want to comment at all on how you approach those situations?
Does risk equate to the price that you're buying? The risk in my mind, or at least I always experienced it, was the risk of like the time it takes to actually get there. In other words, to actually get to that financial freedom number or whatever that thing is, right? So if you're just getting started and you've got 30 grand that you could put down on something, like if you're going to buy in an area where properties are $500,000, it's going to take you forever to get the first deal, forever to get the second deal, forever to get the third deal, versus you go buy in Alabama where you can buy the first one tomorrow and then 3 months from now you could probably afford another one. That is a risk. I mean, that's definitely something to be concerned about. Like if you hate your job, your goal is to get out as quickly as possible, you want to build that cash flow financial freedom, I would definitely be concerned. Now, long term, I think an area like Charlotte's probably going to appreciate way better. When that $500,000 house turns into a $700,000 house, that equity, that growth is way, way better. But the difficulty, of course, is just that takes a lot longer in terms of cash flow to get there. And each deal just takes a lot longer to buy. So I don't know. That's the way I look at the risk there. It's not so much the risk of the deal. I mean, a deal can go bad in any market. A deal can be scary in that way. But yeah, it's which one is going to get you there faster.
I'm just real antsy to get started. I'm just like, I can get one now in Huntsville, or I can wait another year and get one in Charlotte. You know what I mean?
I would say your risk is lower when you get into higher price points. As odd as that sounds, okay? I want you to just think about somebody living in a really rough area where houses are very cheap, unemployment's really high, job stability is really low, maybe their education's different, they don't value things like paying rent as much, versus a doctor in Beverly Hills.
Right.
Which of those people is more likely to make their mortgage payment or their rent payment? Sorry. Right. So even though our mind sees a big number and says this is scarier, it's probably much less scary because the quality of tenant you're going to be renting to in a nicer area that you know very well is going to be more likely to pay, just statistically speaking. Okay. This isn't any like judgment on different demographic groups. So I would remind myself of that. And then, like Brandon said, what your struggle here is going to be, how long are you going to have to wait to get started? So my question would be, how do you make peace with the fact that North Carolina is probably the better option for you and it's actually less risky? And how do you get there without having to save for another year? Can you buy a house as a primary residence and house hack it? That takes you from 20% down to 5% down right off the bat. You probably have enough money right now to do that. Can you find a house to house hack that's not a stereotypical triplex or duplex? I mean, if you can find one of those, that's awesome. But if you can't,
I found one duplex in the area. It was sold, and then all of a sudden it just come back on the market. So I'm kind of excited about it. But that was like one of very few that I've noticed. It's on the outskirts of Charlotte in a little town called Kannapolis. It just came back on the market today, so I'm pretty excited on that one. We thought about house hacking with that duplex there. The numbers line up pretty good.
Literally asking you, what would stop you from doing that?
I really don't have an answer now. I'm probably going to be all over that one more, but with that being said, so let's say I purchased that one this week, this month, blah blah blah. I'm looking at my next step at that point. Is like, okay, do I start? I found a great deal in Kannapolis at the outskirts of Charlotte. I was looking more of, do I now go to like a Huntsville or something like that, because finding deals are so hard to come by around here.
So I was about to say, don't just look for the duplexes, okay? Look for single family homes that have basements that either are or aren't finished that you can buy and operate it as a duplex, okay, or an ADU, or a floor plan that would be very easy to split into two, okay? Avoid one bathroom houses, because then you got to run plumbing for a kitchen or a bathroom off of only one bathroom. If you have more than one bathroom, like two or more, you got easier ways you could tap into plumbing. So you're turning it in to basically be able to function as more than one unit. And try to avoid anything that's on a concrete slab foundation. If it's on a raised foundation, it's much easier for you to run the plumbing and the electrical that you're going to need. And the minute you do that, you start looking at the market that way, you're going to see that there's way more options out there than what you thought. You were thinking Huntsville or Charlotte, and now you're like, okay, in North Carolina, I got 25 options. Which is the best one? And I think that your anxiety is going to go way down.
Okay. Perfect.
All right, man.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure, Logan.
All right, Sammy, welcome to the show, man. Lady, I was gonna say man, so used to saying that. Welcome to the show, Sammy. How you doing? What can we answer for you?
So I'm actually going to be a new real estate agent, but I'm also still dabbling a little bit in real estate investing. And where I live currently, the market is kind of good, but a lot of the houses are more expensive in like the areas that are good to like buy houses and everything. And I keep getting told by other real estate agents like, oh, you'll be fine. You'll get it eventually. Houses, some clients you'll go and then you'll fail or they won't want that house. How do you keep that fire going? Even though if like time after time, it's not exactly what they want or what you want. How do you keep that mindset of just like, one day I will get this?
If everything's a funnel when it comes to real estate investing, finding deals, or being a real estate agent, or being a salesman at a car dealership, doesn't matter. Like it's all the same, right? Like you have to work this process over and over and over, and eventually it should work out to success, right? Like, so if you're a real estate agent, you gotta meet with dozens of people, you show dozens of houses, they just keep saying no, the deal falls through. If you're a real estate investor, you go and make an offer on 20 deals, every one of them, or 20 properties, everyone gets rejected. And then you feel like, it's not working and you lose the fire, right? So this is a very common thing with anybody that has any kind of sales type jobs, which real estate investing is, real estate is, and car dealership is. So the question is, how do you keep the fire? Let me start with you, David, on answering that one, because as an agent, you've dealt with that a lot, and then I'll jump back in.
So the question here, Sammy, is going to be when you're getting rejected over and over and over, how do you stay motivated?
Yeah.
Okay. This is a great question. I love it. And frankly, this is what separates legit agents from not legit agents, and
investors.
Yeah. And investors. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. The amateur, I'm trying to think of a nice way to say this. The amateur expects everything to come to them easily, and they blame everyone else for why something doesn't work. So they write 20 offers. They don't get anything under contract for themselves. And they go, I guess real estate sucks. Or they show 20 houses to a client. The client can't make a decision. And they go, this client's an idiot. It's where we get this phrase in real estate, buyers are liars. We hear this all the time. Okay. On my team and the attitude that Brandon and I ascribe to is the extreme ownership way of looking at it that says everything's my fault. All right. So if I show a client or I write 20 offers for a client and they're not accepted, that's my fault. I did not advise my client what it would take to get an offer accepted. I did not meet with my client for long enough to talk about what their goals are and if this is something that they really want. Maybe they're sabotaging themselves on purpose. Maybe the house is listed for 300 and you say we can get it for 302,000 and they say write it for 301,500. They actually don't want to get the house. They're afraid of home ownership, and you got to dig in and figure out, is it like Logan where they think that the house is too expensive and they're afraid to buy anything over 300? Did they buy a house in 2005 and lost in 2009 and now they have PTSD? There's some psychological issue that your client is having where they're not writing competitive offers or going after the correct properties. And we have to, as agents, look at that like it's our job to figure that out. We cannot expect the client to do that on their own. Some people will get to that point on their own. Many of them won't. So what I would say is stop letting your client drive the car. Get them out of the driver's seat, put them in the passenger seat. You drive the car and you say, look, let's dig deep and figure out what you actually want here. Maybe you shouldn't be a homeowner. Let's figure out if this is even something. Do you just want to pay rent for the next 20 years? This is what rents will be. Let's talk about why we're going about it this way. And the same goes for real estate investors. There's so many investors that come up with a million reasons why they don't actually want to buy a house. It's this weird, like the moth gets close to the flame, but it doesn't actually want to touch it. So it just orbits around it and it never actually gets in there. It's what's between our ears. This is why we're talking about mindset. If you're being honest, Sammy, can you give us a little bit more insight as to why you think this client is not actually putting a house in contract?
In all honesty, I think they're limited with how much they want to put down financially and how much like work they would want to put into it. If it's like a little bit of a fixer upper before they make it a rental, or if they just want a house that will they can buy it and they can flip it and turn it straight into a rental without doing any extra like renovations. I think it's maybe also just them like committing.
So this is an investor client who is figuring out a way to pretend like they're in the investment game, but not actually commit and get skin in the game. Is that fair?
Correct.
So they have something in them. They've got a little hitch that's stopping them from moving forward. And you need to look at it like they need your help to get over that the universe brought you into their life specifically to help them figure out what their fears are. It could be something as simple, and this comes up with my own clients, where, well, Brandon and David said I should be at 70% of the ARV because they listened to a podcast like episode 107 or something like that. And it's in their mind that there's a certain discount that they have to get. And if they don't get it, they shouldn't buy the house. That's outdated information that doesn't make sense for them. It could be something else where someone in their family is telling them, you should never pay over the list price. And you're over here saying, we got to go over list price, right? And there's just this, they're so confused. They're waiting for you, Sammy, to have enough confidence to jump into their head, figure out what's going on in there, and help them work through that problem. I can promise you that.
Okay.
I'd also throw in this, that it's just like real estate investing, and this happens with real estate investing as well. People chase a property because it's there rather than chasing a business structure that will deliver continual clients to them or continual houses. For example, like somebody will be like, yeah, my uncle's cousin is selling their house. And therefore they're like, oh, off market, I might be able to make a good deal out of this. And for the next 6 months, that's all they do is try to think of 100 different ways to make this one property work.
Yeah.
And they just keep trying this property. And I'm like, shoot, like 1 out of 100 deals is actually going to work out. So instead, work on how to get 100 deals a day coming into your pipeline and you'll buy a deal a day. It's really that simple. And so the same thing as applies to real estate agents is like that one client might never buy a property because they suck. And so like work instead on like, how do we get a pipeline of clients that are coming in here? What are the actions I can do there? Now, one more follow-up piece to the question of how do you hold the fire? Like, how do you keep that momentum going when you just get rejected over and over and over and over, whether it's being an agent, investor, or whatever else? What I like to say is this, is don't set your goals based on results, set your goals based on process numbers. For example, if I was going to go offer on a real estate deal, like my goal is not necessarily go buy a real estate deal this quarter. It's I'm going to make 30 offers this quarter. If I made 30 offers this quarter, I'll probably get something accepted. I'm just almost for sure I would. Now, if I got to the end of the quarter and I hit my goal of 30, because now notice what I did is I'm now gamifying the process rather than just like hoping for the results, right? So the same thing is true with agents or whatever, but gamify the process. Now, if you get to the end of the process that should have produced the result and it didn't produce the result, now you got to dive into the process and ask, where am I wrong on that? So finding a real estate deal, I'd say, okay, so I made 30 offers and every one got rejected. Why? Because I'm only offering on market deals. There's 30 other offers on every offer I'm submitting, and I'm only offering on nice properties. Maybe I need to tweak my system and find out what would work better. And so again, like, look at the process, make sure you're gamifying that and your goals are set based on that. That'll keep the fire going because you know the process is going to get there. Stop thinking about the result and then analyze the funnel. Where is it breaking down? At what part is it breaking down and how can you improve it? So that's what I'd
yeah. So for investors, you need to do that for yourself. For agents, you are the fiduciary of your clients. Your job to help them to do that. And that is why we have real estate agents. If people could do this on their own and they didn't need that guidance, Sammy, then there wouldn't be the profession of agent. So my advice to you is that you have some hitch in your own mindset that thinks that you're either uncomfortable getting into somebody's world like that, or that you don't know enough to be able to do the job. You got to let go of that. They came to you for a reason. You do know, your gut is telling you what this person needs to understand. You need to have the courage to go engage in that conversation, and you'll find that they probably they're just going to throw all of their fears all over you, and you're going to be able to pick through that.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Sammy.
Cliff,
all right.
Kamusta ka?
Okay lang po.
What's up, Cliff? Welcome to the show. What can we do for you?
Good. So I'm on my second house hack. Here in Nix by Travis Air Force Base in Fairfield. So I've been doing this and using my VA and using FHA, but I want to scale this year and like bring on other partners because capital is getting thin. So just to get over that hurdle of, having partners, how did you guys do that in your guys' first like partnership? Did you guys have like a gut feeling, like, is it gonna work out, or how did you guys get over that?
That's a great question. I love that. All right. So to recap the question real quick is, how do you get over the fear of bringing in partners? How do you start the partnership route? Because Cliff here wants to scale his business. So that's just a quick, for Instagram, that's what we're talking about. So let me jump in and answer that now. All right, Cliff. So I love that question because it is terrifying to bring in a partner into your business. If you want to scale, obviously a partner is a good way to do it. Raising money or bringing in a partner is a great way to do it, but it has to be the right partner. And there's a lot of people like, well, I've heard bad stories about partnerships. A lot of bad things can happen, and it's true. I've had bad partnerships before. So how do you get through it? A couple ideas. First of all, I'm a big believer in, like, you don't know how somebody's going to be until you've actually worked with them. It's kind of a catch-22, right? Like, if you don't know how they're going to be until you work with them, but you don't want to work with them until you know how they're going to be, how do you put that together? Well, the way that I do it is very small things. Like, rather than let's partner on a bunch of real estate deals, it's, hey, do you want to flip a house with me? Do you want to buy a rental with me? And so if you did one and it goes bad in terms of like you guys hate each other or whatever, that sucks, but it's only one deal. In fact, I heard about a person the other day, actually yesterday, somebody told me about a friend of mine who has a partner who they've now separated, but they own like a dozen properties together, and they are not together. Like they don't like each other anymore. And so like it's a drama filled experience, right? So hopefully you try to settle those things ahead of time. So first of all is find a way to make it easy and small. Start very, very small. It could literally even be like not even a real estate deal. It could be like, hey, do you want to partner together on finding a real estate deal? And if we find something, maybe we'll partner on doing it. So each of us put in $1,000 and we'll see what happens if we can find a deal using direct mail, right? At least you get to see a little bit of how they work. Do they show up on time to appointments? Do you feel like there's some trust built there? Secondly, the more you manage expectations up front, the better long term, right? So the more you can manage those expectations. So like what that means is really spelling out ahead of time, this is what I'm going to do. This is what you're going to do. This is what's going to happen if things go bad. This is what's going to happen if things go good. And almost every partnership fails because something wasn't specified ahead of time enough. So what I like to do is sit with a lawyer. Like it'll cost you $200. You sit down, once you have your partner that you know you're going to work with together, you sit down with an attorney and say, we want to put together a partnership agreement. Will you just like interview us and talk? The lawyer will ask a bunch of questions like, what happens if it goes good? How are you going to split profits? The lawyers know how to do all that stuff. So they'll help you come up with stuff that you didn't even realize was an issue. Like what happens if one of you dies? Oh, that's a good question. What does happen? Because the attorney is going to help you prepare that. So that's my answer to the partnership thing. And then it's hard. But like I said, start small, have everything in writing, manage expectations. What do you think, David?
I think specific to this question, which is how do I partner with someone to buy single family homes because I don't have enough capital? Maybe don't look at it just from I need to find someone that has capital. You could partner with somebody else that can actually get financing for another low down payment like what you've already done. Can someone else use their VA loan, someone that's in the military with you, or another FHA loan, and you get on title to that house, and you just co-sign basically on their loan, but they use those low down payment options. That's something you can use that's more than just capital. So maybe don't assume that you have to just do it the same way that you've already done it, where you buy a house and now you're thinking, well, who's got money? I don't have a track record. It's hard to borrow. There's people that have more to offer than just capital. They've got a loan. And there's also people that are currently not happy with their housing situation. Can you go to somebody in the military with you and say, are you tired of living on base? Well, buy this house. I'll connect you with the lender. I'll show you what we did. You and I will live together. We'll rent out the rooms to other people. You show them how that's going to save them money. Boom, you got yourself a partner.
Well, thank you. Appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Cliff.
All right, let's bring in another question asker, another guest of the podcast. All right, Brody, welcome to the show. What can we do for you?
I live in Utah. I'm 28 years old. The last couple of years I've been, I guess, financially free from real estate, right? I've been able to do pretty well at creating passive income, and it's been amazing. Kind of this internal battle that I've had lately is what's the balance between thinking big and like constantly going bigger, better, which I know is a good thing. I need to do that. But then the flip side is, complacency is the is bad, right? Like, how do you not compare yourself? Comparison is a thief of joy type thing, right? How do you not compare yourself to somebody else and at the same time be satisfied with where you're at? So it's kind of in this constant, like, oh, I'm proud of where I came, but do you keep on grinding, and where's the line? So I wanted to ask you guys.
All right, so I love that question because it's something that I actually ask people all the time. I've asked guests on the podcast before, and something that I've struggled with over the years is how do you balance that contentness and ambition, to the two of them? Because I get a ton of value out of growth. Right? It's fun. Like, I mean, we love building new things. And like I said a joke to a friend the other day, kind of a half joke, because he asked me the same question. And I said, well, for thousands of years, like men would just like kill each other. And just murder one another in like battles and war. And today we just do business. Like we just do real estate. It's like it's the same itch, like to conquer and to win, like to climb that mountain, to like, I don't know, run a sword through somebody. I don't know. It's just like people do, especially men. And there's a lot of women that do it too. They just get a lot of their internal validation from conquering something. And so at the same time, like I've got wife, kids, I want to surf more. I want to just enjoy my time. I want to look back on my life when I'm 90 and be like, all I did was work. So here's just where I've landed on it. And it's a continually evolving thing for me, is that when my wife thinks I'm working too hard, I'm working too hard. In other words, I don't base my ambition / my contentness on my feelings. I base it on the people around me. If they feel like I'm working too hard, because I don't have a good barometer for myself. That said, didn't we have somebody in the podcast the other day, or maybe I heard it somewhere else that talked about having an internal, no, it was a John Eldredge book I'm reading called Take Your Life Back. And he says in there, like everyone should have an internal, there's these barometers. And so for example, one of his barometers is if he can't get his evening walk in, he tries to do a 20-minute walk every night. If he hasn't got his evening walk in for a few days in a row, that's a barometer. That's like a temperature gauge saying, oh, warning sign, you're working too hard, you're working too much, you're being too ambitious. And so there's these internal barometers. Mine is, if my wife says I'm working too hard, I'm working too hard. But I plan to work until the end of my life. I think, Brody, you probably plan to work to the end of your life. David, and most people listen are going to work to the end of their life because we get value out of that growth. So again, I just look to other people as kind of my barometer. What do you think?
How about if I give you a practical example of how I navigate this issue, just what I'm doing right now in Hawaii, and you tell me if I missed anything or if I should add. So I'm currently staying in Maui with Brandon at a condo, and I'm buying a couple condos in that same complex. So I will soon have that same floor plan to stay in when I come visit. 800 square feet, 1 bedroom, 2 bathrooms. It's right across the street from the beach. I walk out of my door and I'm looking at the ocean, and I cross the street and I'm there. There are also condos that are not across the street. They're on the same side of the beach that I could have bought one of those for $400,000 more, and I wouldn't have to cross the street. The way I look at this is it'd be very easy to start being upset with the condo I have because I have to cross the street to get there. And I think that's what you're getting at, is at what point do you say enough is enough? Yeah. I don't need more. Because it would be silly for me to be pissed every time I cross the street and literally take 6 steps or 7 steps to get to the ocean. So what I do to manage this, because like Brandon said, I'm going to be having to move forward and conquer and grow. I also don't want to be unhappy. Is I focus on the things I love about what I have, and I try to squeeze every amount of joy that I can out of it. I have an ocean view. It's awesome. I make sure I look at the ocean, and I thank God every day that I can see how many people in the world get to be in Maui, running their business remotely, staring at the ocean with their best friend next to them. It's incredible, the life that I have. All right. But if I build it to the point where I can have a house on the other side of the street and it's not going to stress me out as far as finances go, I will buy that one. And I will be glad that I can see the ocean closer and not have to cross the street. And I will squeeze every single ounce of joy that I can out of that. And at a certain point, like Brandon and I, we do jujitsu when we get done recording. It's really hot. We do it outside. It's miserable. And I've thought, wouldn't it be cool to buy a house that was big enough, that had a mat room, that was air conditioned, that everybody could go to that house and we could do it in a more comfortable setting. I will be super grateful that I get to pay for a personal trainer to teach us jujitsu, where I'm not getting strangled for an hour by people that are having fun killing me. I'm very lucky I get to do that. But if I get an opportunity to buy a house where I can have an air conditioned room with a mat that everyone can come and we can all be blessed, I will go get it. And then I'll be very grateful to have that. That's the way that my mind tries to process this, so that I don't stop pushing myself and I also don't rob myself of joy.
I think real estate's a perfect example, right? Because it's like we're constantly tempted with, oh, do we keep the cash flow now and buy a nicer car and up our whatever, right? Or do we roll that into the next deal? And then it's like at some point, where's the end, right? Like where does, I don't know, where you keep on going until when, And so, yeah, I think that for sure helps, just being grateful for what you have and then constantly, looking for opportunities to improve.
So like I look at real estate very much like alcohol. Alcohol can provide a lot of fun. At a big party, everyone's loosening up, whatever. There's some good things, I'm sure, with alcohol.
Money like alcohol.
What did I say?
Real estate.
Yeah, okay, both money and real estate like alcohol. You're right, but it's both, right? Like it's dangerous. I say money, but through real estate, we'll say here, meaning in excess, there's a lot of danger to be had there. In fact, I've even like morally been questioned is my whole life just about making people rich? No, I don't want that in my life to be about making people rich, because making people rich doesn't make you happy. In fact, studies show that the richer you are, generally the less happy you are. It's more about, what are you doing with that money that you have? And so I look at if all you ever do is just make more money just so you can have more money to be able to spend more money, that is a dangerous, I think, spot to be in life, because it just makes you less happy and more likely to fall victim to things like depression and that constant envy of what your friends are doing. So I guess I and a few friends, including David here, we talk about that fairly often. What are we doing with our money? What's our attitude to money right now and wealth? How are we being generous? Are we giving it away? Are we just trying to be, as Tim Ferriss says, what's he called? The fat bald guy in the red convertible, something like that. He has this whole analogy in the book about I don't want to be just the old fat bald guy in a convertible who just that was the peak of life, is just to have the red convertible, right? I want to be something different. So yeah. And I think the ultimate answer to me anyway, is it's kind of like work-life balance. There's no such thing. I think it's work-life balancing. It's a continual balancing act, right? Looking at your heart, looking at where you're at and your ambitions. So
I think at some point it comes down to where it's no longer about the money and it's about potential. And that's something I feel like I've been kind of starting to grasp a little bit. And it's because really, does my life change that much if I make an extra couple $100,000 this year? No, probably not at all. But it's a more about, okay, do I have potential to do that? And am I maximizing my potential? And at the end of the day, that's what's fulfilling. That's what feels good is reaching your potential. And so, anyhow, maybe that has something to do with it as well.
Yeah, I agree. I try very hard not to compare myself to other people, to compare myself to my potential, right? And we're not perfect at it. I mean, I'm scrolling Instagram and I see the guy with the fancy jet, and I'm like, oh man, that'd be cool to have a jet, right? But I try not to. I try not to let that affect my mood, and instead just say, well, what is my potential to get a jet? That should be, if I believe I really wanted a jet and that my potential is there to get a jet, and that would be better for me and my family and society for me to have my own plane, then fine, I can go and do that. But the answer right now is no. It wouldn't benefit me at all, or the society or the world, to have a plane. And I'm not knocking people who have a plane. Good for them. It probably helps them in their environment and their family and their business. But for me, it doesn't. But for I knew my potential was to live in Hawaii. I know that was a huge piece of it, and I would be happier there. My family would have a good time. So I moved here because I thought that would be a big part of it. So anyway, hope that helps, Brody. But yeah, thank you for the question. It's good topic.
Appreciate it.
Josh Lupo, welcome to the podcast, man. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing very, very well. This is such a cool idea. I'm so glad you guys are doing this, man. That's awesome.
Well, thanks, man. Well, we're figuring out as we go here, but what can we, what's your question? What's your thought today?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of like a continuation a little bit off of kind of what Brody said. So you guys, a few episodes ago, I think it was, 3 or 4, you had Anson Young on. One of the things you guys talked about was kind of finding that balance between getting inspiration when you're surrounding yourself with successful people and getting inspiration from that, but then also not having that necessarily detract from where you are. I think you guys use the term run your own race, right?
Yeah.
So for us, we started the end of 2018, right? We listened to the podcast, we got our first house hack, we had a bunch of student loan debt, and we were like, all right, let's pay that off. So we got a house hack, paid off a lot of student loans, got a second house hack back in September, and we're feeling pretty good at that time. But then we also have a lot of friends who are really starting to ramp up their investing. And it's finding that balance where we're really inspired by what they're doing, but also trying to not have it detract. We feel like we've accomplished a lot, but sometimes it almost feels like those accomplishments are negligible kind of compared to what our friends. So kind of finding that balance, I guess.
how do you not compare yourself to the other person that's doing more? Because no matter what, I battle this all the time, but yeah, there's always somebody who's doing more than you are, who's doing a better the job than you are, that's crushing it. And, part of that, part of my story over the last few years was I went to the Joe Fairless's Best Ever Conference, right? Like 3 years ago or 2 years ago. And I was surrounded by people who were doing way more than me. And I was like, I don't say I was jealous, but it fueled me to launch my own bigger game, like to play at a bigger level, because what it did is it showed me I wasn't living to my potential, that I had a huge amount of potential that I wasn't living up to. So it wasn't like jealousy that led me there, but it definitely, it fueled me. And so trying to not get jealous and feeling bad about yourself versus letting it fuel you. I mean, it's tough, but all I can say is it's literally like, in my mind, just shifting the terminology. Because when I see somebody doing something great, I think Grant Cardone says this in the 10X rule. Like, he's never jealous of people, because if he sees somebody doing something cool, it just means it's possible. Like, oh, they got a TV show? I'm not jealous they got a TV show. Like the other day, I saw Grant Cardone hanging out with Robert De Niro on his Instagram. Like, Grant got some role in a movie. I'm like, my instant reaction is, oh, I'm jealous of Grant Cardone because he got a role in a movie with Robert De Niro. And I'm like, no, like, that's possible. Let that fuel me. Let me be happy for Grant that he got that, and let that fuel me to the next level and be like, that if it's possible for him, it's definitely possible for me. What do you think, David?
I think that's a great answer.
Well, thank you.
Josh, you have a follow-up comment on that?
No, I think you guys nailed it pretty much with Brody. And it sounds like there's a lot of people who kind of share that same sentiment of, being where we are and understanding that just because, like, you guys just had a guy on who's like 25 with like $1 million in real estate, and I just turned 30, and I'm like, oh, damn. Finding that, like, being content. And David, you said something that I really liked with Brody too, is like having an attitude of gratitude and just being like, and especially in the world we're living in right now, like, we're breathing and we're doing things that so few can do, depending on what their circumstances are. So no, I mean, I think you guys nailed it, and I really appreciate, again, you guys doing this. This is super awesome.
Well, thanks, man. Appreciate you jumping in. Hey, Grayson, welcome to the show. What can we do for you?
Yeah, hey, thanks, guys. I've been a longtime listener, read all the books, and have a really good problem. I'm so thankful. Is we just did our first Burr investment, but what do we do next? Like, I'm really overwhelmed with the opportunities before me. I'm a super connector, so I talk to people all the time, and I'm always presenting things. And whenever I see a neat opportunity, I'm like, oh, we could take it that way. Like, just today, I looked at a 300-unit multifamily building that I have no business even trying to purchase. But then, yesterday, I went through with my realtor to a duplex so we could turn into a triplex. That'd be fun. But he'd have to, as a partner, put up money. Like, basically, there's all these great opportunities, and I'm really overwhelmed with them and distracted by them. Like my business, I'm a remodeler. I do basements. It's really simple. I found that niche. It works really well for me. But I'm finding that I'm just getting really distracted by all these, again, wonderful opportunities. But it seems like every person I talk to has something that I could work with them on. And I get to a point where, it's kind of analysis paralysis, I guess, except, I haven't had to not make a decision yet. So we'll see.
This is my life. Like the same thing. There's so many opportunities that are presenting themselves to me, to David, to you, to most people. And not necessarily, I mean, obviously David and I have a leg up because we're on the podcast and people bring, stuff to us, but just anybody with a growth mindset is looking around the world right now going, there is so much opportunity everywhere right now. I mean, just in real estate alone, there's a million things you could do, and you could start a million different businesses, and the world is shifting and changing. So how do you pick that next thing when there's so many good opportunities?
And ones that like make sense too, right? Like, they're not random. They're not out of the blue. They're really reasonable. The apartment complex, forget that. But, there's so many other reasonable opportunities, but like, I'm just getting distracted essentially.
Yeah. So I know exactly how you're feeling because I feel the same way. So here's how I look at it. Number one, I remember, and I'll let you jump into, obviously, David, I'm hogging the mic right now, but this is like my passion, right? We're going to go build bridge building analogy here.
Here it comes.
I'm going to get there. But first of all, I recognize the fact that it's more important that you decide than what you decide. There is no script for your life that you're trying to figure out. There's not a hidden pot of gold in the beach that you're out there like digging in the sand trying to find. You are an artist at a canvas. You can paint whatever you want. It just doesn't matter. What matters is that you're happy doing it. and that it's going to work, I suppose, right? So, I believe like you'll be fine no matter what you do if you work at it hard enough. You know, like not every business in the world works, but you'll be fine no matter what. So, what do you want to do is the bigger question. And the what I ask myself, and this was a couple of years ago, I said, what sounds amazing? What sounds amazing? And it doesn't matter what you answer that with. It's just okay. So for me, I said, you know what sounds amazing was. And I've told the story many times, but I saw my buddy, Seth Mosley, who owns a music production company in Nashville. I saw the way his company worked. He had 5 people. They were the top of their game. They were hanging out with each other, having fun, joking, doing meaningful work at like Grammy winning people. And then after work, they got off when they wanted to get off. They go hang out together at the local restaurant. They had dinner with their families. And I was like, that is what I want. Like I recognized something that sounded amazing, and I went and literally built my business because of what I saw a completely different company, right? Like I have a real estate fund. He had a Grammy winning music company. But the point was what I wanted was a group of people I could do business and life with and have a fun time doing it, doing meaningful work. So once I defined that, I then just worked backwards and I said, what's my vision? Like where do I want to get to? So I set a 3-year vision. I want to have, in order to bring that result of the 5 people that work with me that are at the top of their game, that were doing meaningful work and making money doing it and having fun, I would need to have this many properties, this much whatever. Now there's 100 ways I could have gotten there. I just picked one that sounded interesting, mobile home parks, right? So then now I had a 3-year vision. I worked it to an annual goal, worked it to a quarterly goal, worked it to a weekly goal, work it to a daily goal, work it to what's the most important next step to get there. And I aligned everything in this vertical that all lines up with the thing above it. And I was able to accomplish my goal within like a year instead of 3 years because it was all aligned there. Now, could I have done 100 other opportunities? Of course. And I had to say no to a lot of other stuff that could have been great. But I just keep reminding myself, it just doesn't matter what I do. So like I picked one thing and it worked and it's great. It was exactly like I thought it would be and it was awesome. And now I'm working on my next 3-year vision right now or 5-year vision. So that said, when there's a lot of opportunities, this is where the bridge building's coming in. You know, when we say bridge building, we say, look, you're on one island and there's another island, we'll call it Success Island. You can build a bridge to get from where you are today, Reality Island, to Success Island. Or you could build 5 bridges or you could build 10 bridges, but you're only one person. You can only build one bridge at a time. So what happens, right, is that we build too many bridges over to that island. So the bigger problem with guys like you and I and David is not that we can't build the bridge. It's that we build too many and they don't get there. So if you're going to build a bridge, another one, like if you're tired of the basement thing, if that's just working, that bridge is already going, you're not that involved with it. It's already running itself. Great. And you want to build another bridge? What bridge can you build that is simply adding another lane rather than a whole entire new bridge? David, what do you think?
I think that the first thing to recognize with this problem that you're having is there's probably a little bit of fear of missing out, that you might be operating under this thought of, if I don't buy this apartment, someone else is going to get it. I'm not going to get another deal. And that's normal, especially when you're first getting into real estate investing. And then after a time, you realize there's always another deal. There's always another way to make a deal work.
Yep.
And so just having the faith to believe that another one's coming will sort of take the pressure off of you that you're feeling, where it's kind of like a dog that doesn't want you to take away its food. You're looking at all this stuff like, I have to go get all of it. So take a deep breath, like Brandon said, breathe, and just recognize the deals will never go away.
Can I interrupt you real quick on something? There's an episode of the Tim Ferriss podcast where they interviewed Derek Sivers, and where Tim interviewed Derek, and he told us like this story basically about doing too many things, same kind of concept. But then he said this, it just changed my life. He said, look, if you're 30 years old right now, and like, I don't know how old you are, but you're probably somewhere in that vein, right? How old are you, Grayson?
35, yeah.
Okay, perfect, right? So if you're 30, you have your whole 30s. You could do an entire like thing for 10 years of time. And then you have your 40s. You could do another entirely different thing. And then your 50s, and then your 60s, and then your 70s. And most people that are today in their 30s and 40s are going to live to 100, at least, if not 120, because of technological improvements, right? To medical. So like, you could do an entirely new thing every decade and still got like 7 more chances in your life to do a decade long thing. Like, I haven't even been doing the Bigger Pockets podcast for a decade.
if I could reframe the question, then, like, you guys have processed this in my mind, I think it's a good next step question is, to quote Jim Collins, when it comes to these different ideas, and like I said, we just did a BRRRR. It went great. It was actually out of state. Thank you, David, for your book. That was extremely helpful in out of state real estate investing. But when it comes to these different opportunities, I guess the real question is, to quote Jim Collins, bullets versus cannonballs. You only have so many resources. How do I fire bullets at these different opportunities to see which one is maybe the one that I really need to dive into before firing the cannonball?
So what did that BRRRR deal do for your financial future?
Before we do the cash out refinance, we're doing about $800 a month cash flow. The cash out, we'll be able to pull out about 70 grand. It'll still cash flow a couple $100 a month with management and other fees. And then it'll still have about 40 or 50,000 in equity.
So you're making a couple $100 a month and you've got 40 or 50,000 equity and you can go do another one, right?
Yes, exactly.
If you do that twice a year for the next 5 years and you end up with 11 of these BRRRR deals, or let's say 10, would that be enough money to change your life?
Yeah. I mean, I guess the other side of it is, like, it's exciting. I think we live the life that we want right now. This remodeling company, I don't have any intention of getting rid of that. And so really it's about the security of the long-term future and having the retirement fund as well as that. And then the excitement of the pursuit as well.
So these houses represent financial peace for you in retirement. First off, they're not necessarily going to change your lifestyle is what you're telling me. You make enough money from your job and you're not going to quit your job, which is great. So make up your mind how many of them actually make sense before it's diminishing returns. You don't want to have 200 single family houses, most likely. That becomes a whole job to manage them. And then look at how you can take your remodeling business. You mentioned that several times, which tells me this is something that's important to you. And ask yourself, would I like to scale that? Do I want to bring in more people to make it passive? Do I want to do a form of both, scale it and make it more passive? Do I want to make enough money with that I could go buy the 300 unit apartment building? You've got these pieces that I can tell are very important to you that you want to keep in your life. Now you need to ask yourself how you can make that a form of passive income so you can go do all this other fun stuff. Because Grayson, you're one of those guys that just wants to do everything and you're going to. Okay. You have to learn the skill of delegation and management in order to be able to do everything. That would be the one thing that would benefit you immensely if you could get that down.
Yeah, it's true of all of us, right?
Well, all of us that want to do a million things. Some people are happy just doing one thing, and that's not as important of a skill for them.
Yeah, it sounds nice.
Real quick, Grayson, one more question I want to ask you related to this stuff. Your basement business, would it be like, this is going to sound counterintuitive to what we teach on Bigger Pockets about getting into real estate, but would it be easier for you to take your basement business and 10x that over the next 5 years and then sell that business than for you to get into real estate? Because I feel like you already have a really solid bridge there.
Yeah, no. And that's, I'm in Northern Colorado. They're building 6,000 or 7,000 homes a year. That's a lot of basements. All I do is new houses. And so the scaling is there. I've built it to scale and I've built it to sell. But also when opportunities, I wasn't intending to get into real estate investing. This opportunity fell in our lap. I was literally pumping the brakes on purpose because I didn't feel like it was the right time. But now that I've dove in, I've tasted the blood, if you will, and it's kind of, it's not the right way of putting it, I suppose. But now it's like, man, that was a lot of fun. I got to do it with my family. My kids got to see the whole process. And it's like, okay, yeah, basements, it's providing, and it's a very important, to continue that and to continue growing it. However, just as a lifestyle, even the investing is something I feel like a lot more excited about involving my family in. Yeah,
that makes sense. And the reason I ask is because a lot of people, it's like they already have this really scalable, it sounds like you do, a scalable, amazing business, and they're more bored with it than anything. And so I challenge people often is to think like, how can you just double, triple, quadruple that instead? Forget BRRRR, forget a couple $100 a month. It's useless compared to what you're going to get in your other business. I don't know your business, but let's just say it's like percentage wise useless compared to that, right? Get your business cranking out $1 million or $2 million a year in extra profit, dump that into real estate, but not stop playing with the $100 a month, $200 a month BRRRR things, and go take your family and be like, hey guys, as a family, we're going to buy a 300 unit apartment complex this year. Cash. Like that sounds fun, doesn't it? Like that sounds like it's the same thing. It just adds some zeros to it. And you have the ability to be able to skip what most people have to go a decade through because you already have a leg up. So I guess the encouragement is just to think about that is, could you instead put all your effort into double downing on your business and then generate the profit to go into bigger real estate deals, not the small stuff. So just something to think about. I'm not sure which way is right for you, but just to challenge some thinking there.
No, that's good. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Cool, man. Well, thank you for coming on today. And with that said, let's bring in one more question asker today. What's up, Roberto? How you doing?
Good. So
Good.
I live in Michigan. I'm going to be a new agent. Cross my fingers. On March 18th, I take the exam. I also want to invest, and I have a full-time job. Am I taking on too much, or should I just focus on doing the real estate thing?
A very timely question for a lot of people, because people right now, they're working a full-time job and they're like, I got to make more money. Well, being a real estate agent is a good way to do that, but they really want to invest long-term in rental properties or whatever, because that makes like passive income. Is it too much? Is it too many bridges, to use an analogy we talked about earlier, to try to get there? David, why don't you start this one?
Okay, so man, how do I want to get into this? Let's talk about the trajectory of success, right? Most people assume success, if you have a graph, right, like success would be going up and time would be going sideways, that it's going to be just the more time you spend, the more success you have, that it will be even. That's what it's like in the W-2 world. The more hours you work, the money you make is proportional. When it comes to getting good at something, it typically looks like this. It just goes really, really slow. You don't really get any better. And then at a certain point, you figure it out and it just scales really fast. Anything you do, you're going to have a really long period of time that you just aren't very successful at it until you get it figured out. The problem with building a million bridges is you're going through that phase where you don't get anywhere all at the same time, and you never actually get any of them to scale.
And it takes 3 times longer in that phase because you're working a third at each one.
It's like downloading 10 movies at the same time on your laptop. You're better off to download one and watch it while the next one's
That's
downloaded.
a good analogy. That's a good analogy.
So part of this question,
pirating movies off the internet analogy. I like it.
Yes, exactly. Please don't tell the FBI. I use that. The part of answering this question is you got to be able to figure out how much time do you have in a day and how quickly can you get to the point, we call it the inflection point, where you start to become successful. So you've got a full-time job right now. You want to invest and you want to be an agent. I would say keep working your full-time job, and while you're there, talk about real estate nonstop with everybody that will listen to you. Make them excited about real estate. Make them think of you when it comes to real estate. You will start to generate leads at your agent business while you're at work. Okay, so it's not, am I doing this or that? You're literally doing both of them. And that period of time where you're just waiting to get leads and you're talking and you're not actually getting anything, you're still getting paid because you're going to work. At a certain point, you'll start to see success. Leads will start to come in. People will start to hit you up about buying a house. You'll work with them. Then you get to go through a whole nother period of learning how to be an agent. What do I do with these people? How do I convert them? At the point where you are now closing more deals than you have time to do, you can leave your job and be a full-time agent. You should now be making enough money that you can move on to going and being a real estate investor while being an agent. And there's a lot of synergy between those. That is how I would structure that. I wouldn't try to do all three with equal effort at the same time. Make sure every time you meet someone and you have a good rapport, you get their contact info, you put it in a CRM, and you make a purposeful effort to stay in touch with those people.
I would also push anybody who's doing multiple things at one time, because sometimes it's unavoidable. You have a job that you would like to get out of, you need to make income, so maybe you have to be a real estate agent at the same time. I would really encourage you to be thinking, because you don't have 1 million hours a week, right? You really got to get that agent business into like 20 hours a week, because you just don't have more time than that, right? So is every hour the most impactful thing you can possibly be doing for that business? Like, are you really doing the actions toward that thing that's going to get you, like, what are like David, as an agent, I'm not an agent, but as an agent, what are like the things that, like, what's a $10,000 an hour task that they should be definitely doing?
Asking someone, do you know anyone that wants to buy or sell a house?
All right. So if you're not asking 50 people a week that question, that's probably not the most, like, that's the thing that you should be doing, right? If you're making business cards, or if you're like
making a flyer,
if you're at another sales meeting at the office, I don't know, whatever. There's a lot of things that make people feel like they're doing busy work, or doing work when really it's busy work. The same applies for real estate. There's nothing wrong with trying to build your portfolio at the same time as being an agent and doing your job. But like, the thing you're doing, your real estate investing, like, you should be doing the most impactful thing for that. Like, are you analyzing a deal? Are you are you talking with a real estate agent? Are you making an offer? Are you sending out a direct mail letter? Like, it's like things like that are the very like intangible, like the very tangible things. And I would say, like, you can invest in real estate with like probably 3 hours a week, 2 hours a week, 1 hour a week. It doesn't take that much time if you're just doing those really important tasks. For example, If like you just analyzed one deal every day that your agent sent you from the MLS and you just ran the numbers on it, 5 minutes every day for 5 days a week, that's 25 minutes a week.
That's true.
And that could land you a deal, right? So yeah, I think you could totally do all three if you wanted to, but you're not going to do all three well. So make sure you're focusing on the ones you can do best.
That's awesome. I appreciate
Awesome,
it.
man.
Good question, though. Thanks for that,
great
Roberto.
question.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's get to the last question of the day before David and I get out of here because this shed is hot. I can hear you, Ben. Welcome to the show, man.
Awesome. David Brandon, how's it going, man? Hey, love you guys. I'm a huge fan. Stoked to be here. I really mean it. I think I've got the OG version here, Brandon. So anyway, shout out to you guys that I
love it.
Holy cow. Ben sounds like he should be hosting this podcast right now, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's got that quality. This is great.
I don't know that I'll ever be able to live up to the analogies though that you're able to throw down.
No one can.
I know it's quite ridiculous and awesome. Anyway, look, Brandon, I know this topic's been brought up multiple times on the show, which I've listened to almost every episode. Still working on getting there, just catching up on past episodes. But the question is about mindset of your spouse.
Yeah.
And I know it's been talked about, so I was kind of hoping to do a little bit of a unique angle on this, and that is your own personal experience, which you've talked about briefly on a number of shows. But I'm curious, at some point in the past, you and your wife agreed to swap books, and I believe she gave you this.
Yes, there it is. Twilight. Yes. I read all of Twilight just to get my wife to read Rich Dad Poor Dad. Yes.
To be clear, this is my wife's copy.
Oh, sure it is. Sure it is, Ben. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Your secret's safe with us and the 250,000 people listening right now.
But anyway, you got her to read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'm curious, did that actually change her mindset? Like, I know it's kind of baby steps, and it's been a long time now. It's been many, many years now. And I'm curious, has it continued to change, over time? And do you feel that your mindset is still kind of on a different plane? Because I think a lot of us we want to know that we're not alone in this struggle, right? I'm the constantly learning, constantly listening, constantly reading, constantly educating, right? And so anyway, I'd love to get your experience on that and how it's been kind of over time now that you've had many years to reflect on how that change has occurred.
Sure. Yeah. I think you nailed it right when you just said you want to know that you're not in it alone. And I think that's the bigger issue for most married couples when they're like, I can't get my spouse on the same page. What they're really saying is I can't get my spouse to be a partner / cheerleader for me. But what I find, so first of all, I find that I don't need Heather to be my partner or cheerleader on this. I'm not going to do anything against her will, but I don't need her to come take half the business, do that work, right? So I don't if she wants to help, great, and she does want to help. And after reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, it really did start to change her mindset. Now it wasn't an overnight thing, but she was like, "Oh, I get it. I get what you're doing. I get this idea that there's more to work than a 9 to 5 for the next 50 years. That it's okay to take some risks. That passive income is a real thing. That there are little oil wells pumping out money. All that she got by reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then the conversations we had. What was probably more important was just getting the terminology in her head so we could have the conversations easier. So it wasn't just me explaining some crazy idea I had about getting rich through real estate. It was no, this is a real thing people do. Now, in the meantime, what does that do? I mean, over time, so Heather, a lot of people know, she started managing our rental properties. She read a ton of books on managing. She built all of our systems, our forms, had everything together. That's why we wrote the book on managing rental properties together. But since having kids, she has really phased out of a lot of it. She still talks to her mom almost every single day. She still, her mom manages a lot of our local stuff in Washington. So she still handles a lot of the day-to-day stuff in terms of a quick text to her mom or to our property managers or whatever. But she has not scaled with me in terms of open door capital or all the things we've done there. And so I guess where I'm getting at that is she was a part of it for a long time, and then she kind of went away. And then honestly, right now in our life, we're looking at buying some condos. David kind of inspired us to buy some condos here in Maui. And so we're looking at this condo as a vacation rental, and it got her re-inspired. It's oh, we could do this and we could design this way and we could paint this wall this way. And she's totally back into it again. And so what I'm doing is I'm leaning into that. I don't want to say I'm giving her that, but in a way, I'm giving her that. I'm oh, this is fire. We always say follow the fire. But follow your spouse's fire too. She had fire for property management. So I led into that and let that be her thing. And today I'm letting the vacation rental be her thing. And she's going to manage the entire rehab of that vacation rental herself. I'm not even going to touch it. I even told her, I'm going to see if I can just never show up one time to the entire rehab. Not once. and she's like rising to the occasion now, is all excited about it. And so anyway, I'm not sure if that answers that question at all, but that's just kind of our past.
It does, and it's really great. But you mentioned early on, like she kind of started taking initiative, wanted to get involved. Was that more involved? And I'm a little bit indifferent on whether or not my wife actually gets involved in the investing. Personally, I just I want her to really understand kind of where my mind's at, so that she thinks about money. Because I think the biggest takeaway I've had from Rich Dad Poor Dad is money mindset, right? Literally the way that I think about money, right? And that's a huge mindset shift that a lot of people. It takes some. Just kind of curious, how you kind of cultivated that growth in her, and again, just kind of allowing her to be herself and choose what she wanted to be involved with. And then David, next, for you have a kind of a unique perspective, as a friend, a close friend of Brandon's for many years now, being able to look in from the outside. And I'm just curious, like, what you've learned and what advice you can kind of give just from your own perspective on seeing that relationship change and grow over time with Brandon's, specifically Brandon's experience.
Wow, you are a professional, Ben, because I'm not married. I'm unfortunately single. So now you found a way to incorporate me into this question. Very good. So my relationship with Brandon, I would say, I think, and this is not me just saying this because I'm on the podcast, Brandon and Heather have the best relationship of anybody. If my friends are listening to this, I saw Daniel Del Rio, you're on here. You have a great one too. Brandon and Heather are next level. I do not know a more attentive, humble, servant-minded person than Brandon. And Heather is incredibly supportive. So, I mean, they're freaks. Like, I don't think any other people could do what Brandon and Heather do, to be honest with you. Sometimes when you give advice, it's like Arnold Schwarzenegger's prime giving weightlifting advice. You're like, well, okay, cool. What am I ever going to do?
We had an argument the other night. Like, we argue sometimes.
Yeah, and it was like they had a harsh tone or something like that, right? I would say that what Brandon does really, really well is he's very, very aware of how his actions affect other people. And he does not push anyone further than what they want to be pushed at. So rather than try to force Heather to go along with what he's doing, he will say, here's what I want to do. Let's talk about what role you're going to play in it. So Heather's making the decision if she wants to be there or not. He does that every time. So Heather never feels like she gets left out. And he always checks with her so she never feels like she's getting dragged along. That's probably the best advice I could share for the masses if you actually want to have a good relationship like what Brandon has while doing crazy new stuff and going through growth all the time.
Well, Ben, thank you for coming on and asking the final question of the day. Awesome. Everyone else, thank you for joining us today. For those people who are watching this thing live, thank you for jumping on. For those who had questions we didn't get to, I apologize. We'll do a lot more of these Q&As in the future. This was kind of fun having me and David sitting here answering questions. And if you thought this was good, let us know. Go and comment wherever you're watching this. Like if you're listening to it on a podcast, go over to our Instagram, whether it's the Bigger Pockets Instagram or David Green 24 or Beardy Brandon. Let us know you like this. We'll be posting clips on our Instagrams and on our Facebooks about this show. A lot of these Q&A we'll be posting. And yeah, let us know if you could also go to biggerpockets.com/show453. Again, biggerpockets.com/show453. Leave a comment there. We'll be checking those. And then of course, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can leave a comment in the YouTube section as well. And let us know if you like this format. We'll be doing more of them, I think, if you did. So with that said, I'll let my co-host here, my fellow host, David.
Wow. I got a promotion. Apparently that butt-kissing line about the relationship works.
My fellow host. We're both co-hosts. That's the thing. I'm a co-host, you're a co-host.
You just never call me that.
I'm calling you a host.
For the first time ever, I'm being
co-host.
acknowledged. See, this is why he's good with relationships, because he pays attention.
I'll let my fellow host get us out of here.
All right. This is David Green for Brandon, the Relationship God Turner, signing off.
You're listening to Bigger Pockets Radio, simplifying real estate for investors large and small. If you're here looking to learn about real estate investing without all the hype, you're in the right place. Stay tuned and be sure to join the millions of others who have benefited from BiggerPockets.com, your home for real estate investing online.